Hey guys, welcome to another video. The team that we're going to be taking an in-depth look at today is our 2024 Penn State Nittany Lions football team. We're going to do a complete preview of this team, looking at some of the players that they lost to the draft from last year's squad, but also some of the players that they're bringing in, as well as looking over their entire 2024 football schedule, seeing which games we think they're going to win, lose, and trying to predict what their final record will be at the end of the season. Go ahead, hit that like button, and subscribe. If you have any comments, drop them below and I will make sure to respond. So let's get started looking at our 2024 Penn State Nittany Lions. This is a squad that is loaded as a team, a very experienced roster. Vegas is projecting them to come in at 9.5 wins. Why is that important? They go 10-2, seems like every single year, just barely miss the playoffs, but what's the big difference coming into this season? The big difference is there's a 12-team playoff now. If you go 10-2, you could potentially, coming from the Big Ten, make it into the college football playoff. That's a game changer for James Franklin and for Penn State. Since 2016, if there was a 12-team playoff, Penn State actually makes a playoff 6 of the last 8 years. A lot of people are hard on Penn State. They never make the playoffs. They never win the big game. Well, they could actually make the playoffs this year if they just continue to do as they've been doing every single season. But I actually think this year is going to be a better year for Penn State. A very experienced roster. Drew Aller back as the quarterback. He hasn't had the big play, but he had 25 touchdowns, 2 picks last season. He just hasn't been able to beat the tough teams, the Michigans, the Ohio States. But they have a couple differences. So they've changed offensive coordinators. They needed to do that. They needed to get a modern offense. They're bringing in Andy Konolinski as the offensive coordinator. He was the offensive coordinator for Kansas. To me, that's a massive game changer. They had a very modern offense. He developed quarterbacks exceptionally well, but they had an extremely efficient and productive run game. Why is that important? Penn State has one of the best, if not the deepest running back room in the country. They're loaded at the running back position. They have Singleton. They have Allen. They're both back. They're going to be deep there. They're going to get a lot of balls. You can rely on them. Drew Aller will have time to be able to throw the ball. They're bringing in some transfers. They have Fleming coming from Ohio State. He's going to be a wide receiver that can make a difference. Plus, they've also brought some guys in through recruiting. Defense is going to be loaded as usual. Manny Diaz, he's off to Duke as the head coach, but Allen's coming in as the defense coordinator. He's going to pick up right where they left off last season. They had the number 1 total yardage defense per game defense last season, and they're going to pick up right where they left off. There's going to be a lot of names that you're going to need to know. Isles, Beeman, Kimber, Harris, Rojas, Winston Jr., Wheatley. This defense is going to be loaded, and they're, of course, just like last season, going to finish the year in the top 5. So that's our preview of the team. Let's take a look at their schedule. Let's try to see what we think they're going to do week by week. They kick things off just like last season, August 31st, which is a Saturday at West Virginia. So they're on the road versus the West Virginia Mountaineers. That might sound like a gimme game. Do not let that happen. Neil Brown, this team won 9 games last season. They're an extremely loaded team. They're bringing back a lot of players from last year's squad. Penn State beat them pretty good last year. I think Penn State's going to beat them again this season. Penn State is extremely physical. Defense travels on the road. They're going to go to West Virginia. Don't overlook them, but I don't think James Franklin's going to have that happen. He's a very disciplined coach. They're going to win. It's probably going to be like a 38-20 game, and they're 1-0. Then Saturday, September 7th versus Bowling Green. This is obviously kind of a cupcake game. They're coming off of a pretty decent game versus West Virginia prior to getting into conference play. Have a couple cupcake games. They're going to run right through Bowling Green. Probably going to win it like a 50-6 game, and they're 2-0. And then Saturday, September 21st versus Kent State. This is another gamey game, cupcake game. Continue to get hot. Continue to give your offense some reps in your new scheme prior to getting in the conference play. They're going to run through them. It's going to be another blowout, probably like a 48-3 game, and they're 3-0. Then Saturday, September 28th versus Illinois. The Illinois Fighting Illini, they were really good 2 years ago. They've completely fallen off since then. Penn State's going to run right through them. They're way too physical, and their offense, passing-wise, is going to start to click in here. They're going to run through this game, but I think it's going to be kind of a lower-scoring game, maybe like a 30-10 game, and they're 4-0. And then Saturday, October 5th, the UCLA Bruins, one of the new teams to the Big Ten. They lost everything from last year. Their entire roster basically transferred out. They lost Chip Kelly as the head coach. There's going to be a massive talent gap here. Penn State's going to continue to beat up on these crappy teams. They're going to win this one, I'm going to say a 40-9 game, and they're 5-0. And then Saturday, October 12th at USC. Finally, their first real true test of the season on the road versus USC. You can never overlook the USC Trojans under Lincoln Riley. Yes, their defense was a complete joke from last year. They were pathetic. New coordinator. If you were 120th last year, would you rise up to maybe 60th this year? That's not good enough to beat Penn State. But when you have Lincoln Riley calling, when you have Miller Moss at quarterback, Branch at wide receiver, they're going to score points no matter who they're playing. So there's always the potential for a shootout. But Lincoln Riley never does good versus these physical teams. I think Penn State's going to line up in the eye, and they're going to run it right down at you this game and win the game in the trenches. Penn State's going to win this game on the road, but USC is going to get theirs. I have this being a 33-24 game, and that makes Penn State 6-0. Then Saturday, October 26th at Wisconsin. Another tough game. Don't overlook Wisconsin under Luke Phil Longo. They have Tyler Van Dyke transferring in as the quarterback. They had a top 25 defense last year, so they can keep the game low scoring. The issue was on offense. Look for them to be better this season, but they're not going to be Penn State level. Penn State's going to beat them in a lower scoring game. I'm going to say it's going to be like a 24-14 game, and they're 7-0. Then Saturday, November 2nd versus Ohio State. This is a massive one here. We all know the Buckeyes. A lot of people have them as the number 1 or number 2 team in the country. They're going to be loaded, a top 3 roster in all of college football. They have a new quarterback transferring in. Obviously, that's going to be a complete game changer. You have Chip Kelly as the offensive coordinator. They're going to have a top 3 or top 2 defense in all of the nation. So it's going to be a lower scoring game. I don't think Ohio State's going to run it up on them, but I do think the Buckeyes will win this one in a close one. I'm going to say it's going to be a 27-24 game. Penn State drops their first game of the season, but it's fine. You're still in the running to potentially make the playoffs, and that's going to put them at 7-1. Then Saturday, November 9th, another new team to the Big Ten. You have the Washington Huskies coming in. They also completely lost their team from their national champion squad from last season, and they also lost their head coach, Kalen Deboer, to Alabama. A complete rebuild under Jed Fesh. They do have Will Rogers transferring in as the quarterback, but Penn State's going to shut them down. They're going to run all over them. They're going to throw all over them, and they're going to have a rebound from the Buckeyes game. I see them winning this one, probably like a 40-13 game, and they're 8-1. Saturday, November 16th at Purdue. Purdue, just like Illinois, was good 2 or 3 years ago, completely fallen off since then. This game's not going to be close. They're going to win this one. I'm going to say it's going to be a 40-10 game, and they're 9-1. Then Saturday, November 23rd at Minnesota. Minnesota, under PJ Fleck, they sometimes have some pretty competitive teams, but they're usually like a 6-6, maybe 7 or 8 win team sometimes. This isn't going to be their year. Penn State's going to beat them. Probably, let's say, a 38-13 game, and they're 10-1. Final game Saturday, November 30th versus Maryland. Maryland lost their main quarterback. They lost to Ovailoa last year. He was like an 8th-year senior. He's finally gone. That's one of the main things that was carrying this team. Loxley, sometimes they do have a pretty decent offense. They can score some points. You never want to overlook a team that can win a shootout, but I don't think this game's going to be a shootout. Penn State's going to finish the final game of the season on an extremely high note, get over the hump this season. Penn State's going to win this one. Let's say a 44-15 game, and Penn State finishes the regular season 11-1. Every year they're 10-2. You can put it down like death and taxes, but this season 11-1, the potential to finish the year in the Big Ten championship, maybe playing a Ohio State, an Oregon, a Michigan. We don't know yet, but 11-1, you could potentially end up in the Big Ten championship. Whoever wins that gets an automatic bye week, gets into the playoffs. That's amazing. Even if you lose it, if you finish 11-1 during the regular season or 11-2 with a conference championship loss, you're going to make the playoffs. So I do have Penn State getting over the hump, getting over the hurdle, making the playoffs this season. Props to them. So that's my breakdown of our 2024 Penn State Nittany Lions. Go ahead, hit that like button and subscribe. If you have any comments, drop them below and I'll make sure to respond. Thank you.